So if you're looking for a larger tablet, you've probably considered the new Galaxy Tab S10 Plus and the new iPad Air 13. I think there's a few things that might make one tablet a better option over the other, but which one is the better option? Well, let's talk about it. Kind of hard to imagine, but when it comes to pricing, the iPad Air is actually the cheaper option, starting at $799 versus $200 more for the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus. Now keep in mind, Samsung typically has several sales throughout the year, so I wouldn't pay full price unless you had to. They also have pretty good trade-in deals as well. Storage options start with 128 gigabytes on the iPad versus 256 for the Galaxy Tab. You can also go up to 1 terabyte on the iPad, 512 gigabytes for the Tab S10 Plus. With the iPad Air, you've got a 13-inch liquid retina display with 2732 by 2048 resolution versus a 12.4-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display with 1752 by 2800 resolution, up to 120 Hz refresh rate for the Galaxy Tab, only 60 Hz for the iPad. I'm sure there's a lot of people that prefer the Galaxy Tab because of the better specs, and yeah, when you put them next to each other, the Samsung screen looks a little more vibrant with better contrast, but the iPad Air is actually a little bit brighter and still looks really nice in person, in my opinion. One obvious difference though is the aspect ratio, where some may prefer the more square shape of iPads versus the more widescreen shape of Galaxy tablets, so that's definitely something to consider as well. You also have a fingerprint scanner right on the power button for the iPad. Probably prefer it on the screen of the Galaxy Tab a little bit more. I just feel like it's a little more convenient, but obviously that's going to be personal preference. When it comes to battery life, it's pretty interesting that these two lasted about the same 7 hours in my typical battery drain test at 100% screen brightness. But just keep in mind, the iPad screen is a little bit brighter, so in real world use, it's going to last a little bit longer. Plus, this is a more extreme use scenario, so you should be able to get a couple days of mixed usage, even longer if you turn the screen brightness down. And then you get up to 45 watt fast charging with the Tab S10 Plus versus 20 watts for the iPad Air. Now, software-wise, the iPad is on the latest iPadOS 18, and the Galaxy Tab is on Android 14, One UI 6.1.1 as of this video. I think both do a really good job of giving you extras, especially if you want to be a little more productive with stuff like Samsung Dex on the Galaxy Tab or Stage Manager on the iPad. There's definitely some similarities between the two. I sort of like things about both, but it's going to come down to personal preference on whether you prefer Android or iPadOS. Both are good options to do most of the things you would need to on a tablet. One advantage for the S10 Plus is it comes with the S Pen, where you have to pay extra for the Apple Pencil, so that's something to keep in mind as well. I probably prefer the S Pen over the Apple Pencil, even the new Apple Pencil Pro, which has extra features, but obviously that's going to be personal preference. Either way, they're both good for drawing, taking notes, or just moving around the software. Nice thing is you've got video out on both tablets, so you can connect these to a projector, TV, or external monitor. I know for me, it definitely comes in handy when traveling. It's definitely something that should be on all tablets, in my opinion. Now, in the past, usually Apple was the one that had longer software updates, but now with the new Tab S10 Plus, you get 7 years of software updates, which is pretty great, whether you plan on using it for that long or giving it to a family member later on, which would mean it's still going to have plenty of life left on it. Performance-wise, the iPad Air comes with the M2 chip versus a MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus in the Galaxy Tab. The iPad Air has 8 gigabytes of RAM versus 12 gigabytes for the Galaxy Tab. If you look at Geekbench scores, these two are pretty close in single-core scores, but the iPad has a little better multi-core score and better GPU performance. It also ran a 3D Mark Steel Nomad Lite test to see how they compare to each other, and yeah, the iPad is still a little better at 2588 with 19 frames per second versus 1908 for the Galaxy Tab at 14 frames per second. I feel like both are good options for playing games like PUBG Mobile or Asphalt Legends Unite. Obviously, it may depend on which games you're playing and which aspect ratio you prefer, but it's really nice to play games on larger screens like these, especially if you're using a Bluetooth controller. When it comes to speakers, Apple tries to be sneaky and makes it look like there's 2 speakers on each side. But if you put your ear up to each one, sound only comes from 1 on each side. With Samsung, you've got 2 speakers on each side with Dolby Atmos. And when you play these right next to each other, I would definitely give the advantage to Samsung on sound quality and overall loudness. But here's a quick sample of each just to give you an idea of how they sound. Now when it comes to cameras, the iPad, you've got a 12 megapixel camera on the back, 12 megapixel ultra wide on the front. With Samsung, you've got 2 cameras on the back, an 8 and 13 megapixel, then 12 megapixel ultra wide on the front. You can also record up to 4K resolution for video on both tablets, and I think you could use either one for Zoom meetings or other video conference calls. Probably personal preference on which one has better quality, but here's a quick sample of each just to give you an idea of what to expect. So as you can see, there's some things that are pretty similar between the two, but of course there's a few things that are quite a bit different, like screen aspect ratio. You'll also have to look at what accessories you can get for each one, obviously the software differences, and so on. Either way you decide to go, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I'm definitely doing some more comparisons with the new Tab S10 Plus. I've also got some new tablets that I'm working on as well. Plus, hopefully my voice will be back to normal, so keep an eye out for those upcoming videos. So if you've made it this far into the video, you may want to say thanks by subscribing, and don't forget to give a thumbs up if this video was helpful. This is Brian from Fishbee Productions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.